Hey everyone, this is Ash, and you're watching Ash on Comics. I wanted to talk about what I'm going to coin as Comicsgate-gate. We had a big live stream between about 8 or 9 of the tops. Probably the top Comicsgate YouTubers that are currently the highest profile, all minus Capn Cummings. And if you're like me, you probably woke up today or yesterday, I think, when this started. At some point you came on and was like, what the hell is going on? That's where I was today. And I proceeded to watch and follow various tweets and try to figure out what the hell is going on. And it turns out that the crux of the issue boiled down to, from what I am gathering, a misunderstanding between a few of the comic book pros and YouTubers that are involved in the live stream tonight, including Capn Cummings, who was not involved, and a misunderstanding with Ethan Van Sciver, ComicArtistPro Secrets. So there was a big 2 or 3 hour live stream that many of you watched. I mean, it got up to like 3,000 viewers at some point. It's like, good Lord. But many of you I know didn't watch, because not everyone wants to watch 3-hour live streams. I caught most of it. And I also watched the preview live stream that Ethan did with Doug Ernst. And I actually found that live stream to be a little bit more valuable. The big one was just too many people. It's too chaotic. Yeah, and it just, whatever. I mean, I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad that people got to air their grievances publicly and talk about it in a forum, and those types of things are good and healthy. The chat that I watched with Doug and Ethan was much more informative. And if you're curious to know all the details, that's a good one to watch. I've also had the opportunity to talk to Capn Cummings a little bit to get some of his insights. And I just felt like I wanted to post my thoughts about what was going on. I don't like what's happening. What got me back into comics are, in a large part, the Comicsgaters. I, like many of you probably watching this, didn't like what's happening in comics. I still don't like what's happening in comics. My favorite, most beloved comic company, Marvel, is become sort of like my enemy. I despise them now, and I don't like that. I want to love Marvel again. It's not enjoyable, going to the comic book store every week and not buying Marvel comics. It's not enjoyable seeing a bunch of unqualified SJWs sit on Twitter and act like they're big celebrities, talk down to fans like me and you, telling us not to buy their books, as if we do. But what I really don't like seeing is this group infighting amongst ourselves. One of the biggest reasons someone mentioned in the live stream was like, we're putting on a show for the the SJWs, and there's a lot of truth in that. We shouldn't be sitting here acting the way we mock them for all the time. It's really silly. I thought we were really above all this. I still think for the most part that we are. For the most part, this all got cleared up on the major live stream. Where Ethan got to say his piece and the other Comicsgate YouTubers and pros and so forth are doing their stuff, got to accept his somewhat of an apology. I mean, he apologized for upsetting them, but didn't really apologize for what he did. I'm not going to judge him for that. That's between the parties involved. But everyone walked away on, amicable terms, and really there was very low drama when all things considered, which I do like. But the video that I was talking about before with Doug and Ethan was a little, like I said, more informative. And I want to first shout out a disclaimer that I am a very large supporter of Ethan's work, big fan. I've been subscribing to him only slightly less of a time than I have Diversity in Comics, who was the big guy who got me, back into the hobby, and big inspiration for me to start this channel, just to get on and talk about my feelings and so forth. I really enjoyed Ethan's channel. I really liked it back when he was ComicArtistPro Secrets, talking about comic art pro secrets. He has since, in recent times, sort of shifted his channel to a big Star Wars push. It's totally within his prerogative. That's his channel. He can do whatever he wants. It's not my cup of tea, the content that he's doing. But I still have a lot of respect for him. I've jabbed him a few times about Star Wars. One of my favorite things to say to him now is how he doesn't know shit about Star Wars. And he's always a good sport. He's never rude or a jackass. And I think genuinely, just from my listening to him and some of his shows where he's gotten kind of vulnerable, I guess would be the best way to put it, about some of his personal life and so forth, I think the guy is very genuine. If not, he's also very proud. So I want to get that disclaimer out because I didn't like the way Ethan handled himself on the chat with Doug. I think Doug was going out of his way to try to build bridges with Ethan. And Doug was one of the people that had a problem that was kind of what was causing this rift, because apparently, as I learned today, Doug and Ethan had a behind-the-scenes project that they were at one time planning on working on together as 50-50 partners, some sort of zombie fiction, presumably a comic. Sounds exciting to me. I would have been in on that. And it fell apart. And it fell apart months ago. And like professionals that they are, they didn't, blab about it publicly and so forth. But we learned about it, and apparently the way things went down, and some of the things Ethan had been saying just recently because of this all misunderstanding, caused Doug to infer that Ethan may have been referring to him, because Ethan really wasn't clear on who he was referring to. Ethan had made a comment talking about, hey, you ladies, talk to me in person or something or other, which was slightly hostile, kind of aggressive. And Ethan made some good points about, hey, why don't you talk to me in person, which I agree with, but all at the same point, if you're going to ask for that sort of fair play to talk in person, why are you shouting that out in public? I mean, you could DM them in person too, It goes both ways. What I really don't understand is why two adults don't just pick up the phone and talk. You know, especially like in this case, with Doug and Ethan doing this comics project together and it falls apart because of miscommunication or what have you. That's fine. These things happen. Not judging. But if one of you has a grievance about how it's being handled, why does it break out in a war? Not a war, that's hyperbolic. But, a fist fight, I guess, on Twitter. Why not pick up the phone and call each other and be like, hey man, what's going on? This idea of communicating publicly, it has its place. It's great when we're sharing fun and ideas, that all that public, get everyone involved. But sometimes you got to be personal. Sometimes you got to take someone and say, hey, can I talk to you in private? And you don't air everyone's laundry out in public. And I think Doug was trying to do that. Doug hadn't basically kept his mouth shut on everything that was going on until finally kind of a straw broke the camel's back. And so Doug was, I think, very diplomatically trying to express this to Ethan, who I felt was very defensive. And I want to reiterate my feelings again about, my respect for Ethan, and it's very easy to come off as judgmental and so forth, and I'm not really wanting to do that. I am not perfect. I have been in Ethan's shoes. I've handled myself much worse. I'm simply just trying to describe what my observations and how I, as a third party, walked away from hearing this. And as someone who's a fan, I was disappointed to see Ethan react the way he did. I really would have been more appreciative if he would have just broke down and said, look, I'm sorry that this happened to you this way. I didn't realize I had done what I had done the way that I did and how I had hurt people. And that was never my intent, and I didn't see things that way. And I'm genuinely sorry. I will take that in consideration in the future and how I deal with you or anyone else. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth. But to see that the backpedaling and say, well, you did this and you did that, I feel like that doesn't progress issues. It's like, yes, there's always someone to blame, but sometimes it's like, take the high road. And I think that the struggle that Ethan has is that, he's big time as far as our group is concerned. This Comicsgate group and this comics community goes. Ethan's one of the top dogs. So in our microcosm, he's a celebrity. So he's looked at differently than someone like me. I'm a nobody, so I can mouth off and say things and people just dismiss me. I've got, 8 followers now on this channel. I'm nobody, literally. Ethan is got a huge crowd. He's just breaking records on Indiegogo, and I'm happy for him. I genuinely am. I want to see him be a massive success, but I also want to see him be a great example of the success that we, the fans, want. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of where my disappointment comes in, because I'm like, look, I'm rooting for you to be this great success, but I don't want you to be this great success and then let the money go to your head and you kind of forget where you came from and, all the things that we write stories about, because that's human nature. And I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening or anything. It's just, but it's natural to think about those possibilities. So what it boils down to tonight was that chat between Doug and Ethan kind of got resolved. Doug got kind of put in the middle on this chat because Ethan was then saying, well, what about, you know, so-and-so with, you know, Capn Cummings, for example, or Timothy Lim and Chuck Dixon. And, well, obviously Doug can't speak for those individuals, and he rightly didn't, and said, well, look, we'll have the talk tonight about it. And, you know, they, like I said before, they all hashed it out online, even though I didn't feel it was as productive for the fans. I mean, essentially they could have just all talked in private, and it probably would have been more beneficial for them. I'm glad it was public so that it was transparent, but it just the chaotic mess, I don't think fans got settled. I think, if anything, my disappointment of the big chat was, number one, that it was on Ethan's channel, and Ethan has a large fan base that's not part of the comics community, and so they only know him for his rabble-rousing against the Disney Star Wars. And if you ever listen to him on his channel, I mean, he doesn't pull punches against Disney or the shill media that supports it or anything. I mean, he's no holds barred. So be it. That's like I said, it's his prerogative. That's the way he wants to do things. Not my particular cup of tea as still a fan of Star Wars. But you bring that fan base over now into the Comicsgate community, they don't necessarily have the history, the understanding. They don't know who some of these people are. So I'm sitting here watching this thing go on and looking in the chat, and people are like insulting Doug and some of the other people, and I'm just like, oh, this wasn't healthy. And what I don't like is the groupthink mentality. I mean, that's one of the things that we rally against the SJWs is, you know, they are of one mind. They can't go against, they can't think on their own. And we hate that. So that's why we're not part of that. But it's still human nature to do that. We're all susceptible to it. We need to remember this. Just because we have different politics and just because we're conscious of it doesn't mean we're immune to it. And I was starting to see some of that. I was starting to see some of the people who were, you know, strong fans of Ethan were just, whatever Ethan says, they're going his way. Well, Ethan's not responsible for that. He should at least be conscious that he influences that. I would hope that he is. It's really important that he takes that in consideration. I mean, and by his own words, he has said the Comicsgate community is very important. So, while he's still free to do as he wishes, I guess I gotta quote, you know, Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. He's not under any obligation to do anything, but I guess what I'm saying is I just hope that Ethan does the right thing and takes that into consideration. Let his conscience guide him. In the end, what this all boiled down to was gatekeeping. And that's an important topic. Ethan's belief on gatekeeping is different than a lot of other people's belief. And that's fine. We're all, you know, we can't advocate free thinking and then expect other people to think like us. But we also have to be willing to accept the disagreement and respect others' disagreement. From what I gather, my understanding is that Ethan wants to be a little bit more proactive at actively gatekeeping SJWs out of comics. I 100% understand this sentiment. I feel it the same way. However, I disagree with it. I am very much against gatekeeping because of principle. I think SJWs are wrong, way wrong. I think they're bad for comics, way bad for comics. But I support free thinking, free action, not groupthink. And I live by kind of a philosophy that states either everyone is free or no one is free. And what that means is you can't ever really declare that freedom exists if some people don't have it. Because then the freedom that anyone else has is really just an illusion. You've established a precedent that freedom can be taken away at any time. It also kind of goes along with free speech. The concept of free speech. Either everyone has free speech or no one has free speech. You can't say, well, some people can speak what they want as long as we agree with it. Well, that's not free. So, in order for me to have free speech, I have to respect everyone else to be able to say whatever they want, no matter how much I dislike it or think it's disgusting or whatever. I have to. Because that's what it means for me in order to expect anyone else to listen to what I have to say. You have to have absolute freedom or you don't have freedom. So by that sort of principle, I believe in gatekeeping. Gatekeeping, in my heart, I would want to gatekeep SJWs out because they're bad. But I don't like it when they gatekeep us. So gatekeeping itself is bad. I can't preach against it and then say, well, I'm for it if I do it. That's just not right in principle. And I think principle trumps feelings, so to speak. So I hope that gives people, anyone who's bothered to listen to this, some food for thought. I just wanted to get my idea, just express, because I just didn't have a chance to. I've typed a little bit on Twitter. The live feeds are just stupid. It's not even bother commenting the live feeds. The chat just scrolls a million miles a minute. If you bother to listen to this, please comment. Give your feelings about what you think. I'd love to hear it. I want to give a shout out to Capn Cummings. He wasn't represented tonight. And I did have an opportunity to talk to him a little bit and get some of his insights. This is a guy who has been around preceding most everybody. Been fighting the good fight, so to speak. He's got lots of integrity, stands high on principle. I really respect the guy. And I don't want to see him thrown under the bus. And I truly believe this is just a big misunderstanding between people. It happens, we're humans. It easily happens over text, where you don't have intonation and those sort of things. So there's an easy, how do I say it? There's a slippery slope that you can fall down into when you're only hearing other sides of the story. So if you're following on Twitter, you're following other YouTubers or whatever, people are going to say things. I don't know what they're going to say. But I have already seen a couple of things that bothered me, of some people choosing oh yeah, so-and-so said this and I'm all, that they following a rallying cry of sorts. And it's so if one person disagrees with Capn Cummings and then other followers are yeah, screw him. That shouldn't be what we're about. And Capn Cummings wasn't represented. So we should always be willing to give anyone the benefit of the doubt. And I talked to him. He was very open, forthcoming. I believe anyone who gives him an honest shake, he will be the same with. So just keep your mind open is what I'm saying. Not everything is always as it appears to be, and sometimes things between people aren't our business. We are just spectators, and we can express our opinions. And I told Captain, I was like, look, I feel this way. I just hope you guys find a way to make amends, sort things out. Ultimately, that's between you two. You know, I'm not telling you how to live your life or judging, but I respect you and I respect Ethan, and it bums me out to see you're not getting along. I think you're on the same side. So, again, I ramble a lot. We're running long. I hope it didn't bore anyone. I hope there was something. You got something to chew on. If you have something that I need to think about, like I said, put in the comments. If you have your own YouTube channel and I'm not already subscribing or whatever, point me to it. I'll be happy to listen to what you have to say. And I'll give you a shout out. And I'll follow you on Twitter, whatever. Follow me on Twitter, Ash on Comics. And I'll see you around. Thanks for watching.